you, Shalina, and thanks very much, guys, for being here today. I'm going to be sharing my of redundancy that has recently happened to me in the last few months. But before I start sharing more of my journey, I'll tell you a little bit about me, just so you have context. I'm originally from Scotland. Slide's not moving, guys. Yeah, so a little bit about me. Just trying to work the slides here. Awesome issues with these things. And I've worked in various HR roles across the globe over the last 15 years. I moved to Hong Kong last May, at least. So it was the first time I'd moved to Hong Kong. So it was a very big change, a big step in a new direction, coming to a new country, and then to a new area as well. So as Shalina mentioned, I was Director of HR for Asia Pacific at Hotels Corporation. And I've had an extensive career in HR for the last 50 years. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, I've been the other side of the table, managing and leading a lot of researchers. But this time that I've actually been on the other side of the table in terms of being made redundant myself. So I feel like I have a new and different perspective to redundancy, and a lot of I think than I actually before as well. Okay. Technology is great when it works, isn't it? Okay. Okay, so I think we can see the slides now. So just a little bit about what I'm going to talk about today. I'm obviously going to talk about my redundancy journey, how that's just happened to me recently in the last few years. Not so much on the practical aspects of HR. I think there's a lot of information out there about the practical aspects. More than happy to answer any of those questions at the end. This is more about how with the journey being in HR and on the kind of other side of the table, and then being in this redundancy position myself, and more about the opportunity, how we can see redundancy as an opportunity and not as a crisis, even though it is a big life change for people when this happens to them. And also I'll touch on dealing with the emotions as well. There's a lot of negative emotions that can come with redundancy, depending what stage you are in your career, in your life, but a lot of very natural emotions to have that a lot of people go through at these times. I'm going to talk about how I've found a new purpose. I haven't gone back into a corporate career. I've decided to embark on my own businesses, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later. And then how I've managed to reinvent myself, and how potentially you too, if you find yourself in that situation, as Shalina touched on, there's going to be many more redundancies, unfortunately, due to this as we go forward over the years to come. So a little bit about my previous role with Hyatt. I had the role of Director of HR for Asia Pacific, as I've mentioned before. Hyatt, if you don't know them, they're a very large hospitality chain. And I moved, like I said, to Hong Kong from the Middle East, thinking at that this was an absolutely move for me. It was a higher level role than what I'd had before, and a different region and a new industry for me. So in my eyes at the time, I really saw this as more of a job for life, and so I could really progress. Unfortunately, I didn't preempt at all, and what I didn't preempt moving over to Hong Kong was that there would be a global pandemic. I don't think any of us could have faced the impact that was going to have across the world. So, of course, we know that the hospitality industry heavily hit and on the verge of collapse, and Hyatt has not come out untethered. They have made redundant already 40% of their corporate staff. So I wasn't surprised when I got made redundant, but that doesn't make it any easier when you're put in that position, especially having moved so recently to a new country and to a new industry as well. So The moment I knew, this was actually before I got told initially. When you're in HR, you have certain inklings of things change within an organization. And usually I'm privy to those conversations as well about what's happening in the business. I knew the industry was in dire straits. There had already been measures taken to try and ease the workforce. Hyatt had done as they could, but unfortunately they got to the point where redundancies had to happen. So at that time, before I knew officially, I knew already, and it was a very trying time, because I think at that point with redundancy, that limbo stage is the worst. With any crisis in our lives, if we know what's happening, then we can plan for it. So I was considering lots of future in Hong Kong. Would live, the fact that we had put out a lot of money on our relocation cost over from the East, even things like we'd adopted a puppy here, and what we were going to do if we had to relocate my cat back to the UK. It's all these practical things that you do. So with that, and with not knowing, that kind of fueled a lot of anxiety for me at the time, and it was quite a troubled period for me to go through, and my family, because they were also worried. A few weeks later, it was confirmed to me that I was being made redundant, and at that time I had all the negative emotions, but at least at that point I knew, and I could make a plan of what I was going to do going forward as well. And I think with that there are a lot of natural emotions that you feel before and after you've been told of the news. Touch on these emotions now, and definitely ones that I went through when I was going through the period of redundancy. As the saying goes, it's not to be okay, especially when these things. It's a very disruptive time in your life when you're the news of being made redundant, and it can cause a lot of emotions to come up for you. A lot of it for me was anxiety about the future, what I was going to do next. I'd only been in that job for the year, and I was obviously gutted to hear that news. If anyone knew how much sleep is important to me, and it was very much interrupting my sleep at that time as well. I had a lot of self-doubt, because you then, even though we're in a global pandemic, you do question yourself a little bit, like, is it my ability, maybe this person being kept on and not me? And I've always had back in my career, and now this has happened, and I've always probably quite sadly taken like a little bit of pride that I've always managed through restructures and never been a person that's been in this position, but I found myself in this position, and this self-doubt isn't actually natural. If I look back and look back that I've received career to date as well. Now, an emotion I know a lot of people feel is resentment when they're made redundant. Now, luckily for me, I didn't feel a lot of it at all, or anger towards the business or the way I treated. Hyatt's a very caring organisation, and they did the very best they could with a fair package and process as well. But I do know that others aren't as fortunate as me to be in that position, and it's also a natural emotion to have when you're going through this process. And a lot of the time, if things aren't handled very well, that's an emotion that can definitely be felt for sure. Definitely a little bit of embarrassment having to tell my family and my friends, because for me, I've always had a very successful career, and I had to explain to them that, oh, I'm not going to be working in this role. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Yes, I've moved to Hong Kong. There's all these questions that you get that you don't really know the answer to. And I think in the Western world, definitely there's more of an understanding redundancies happen. It's more of a way of life, whereas in Asia, it's not really seen as naturally that. But what I would say is that we are in a global crisis and this will continue. There should be no embarrassment for people that are going through what I've been through. I understand definitely how I feel like that, but take it from me, there's no need to be embarrassed, because there will be a lot of very good people in these positions going forward. And then ultimately, I felt a lot of relief, especially after the limbo stage was over for me, that I could really make a plan, reflect on things, and was I actually what I was doing in my career? Like, sometimes you put yourself on a trajectory that you think you should be on, and maybe it's not the right path for you in the first place. So what I wanted to really get across here was it's okay to experience a range of emotions. It helped me to label my emotions rather than to like sink down with them. So labeling what your emotion is, if I felt like I was anxious, I would say to myself, I have anxiety, and then think about why I had it, kind of remove emotion from it. And also, don't bottle it up as well. It really helped for me to talk to loved ones as well. And I feel that in doing that and being open and honest about how I felt was made me move past these a lot quicker. So on the left-hand side, we have the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And at the start of this redundancy, I was very much in the fixed mindset that my self-worth had taken a bit of a battering, that I felt that my identity was definitely attached to my career, and that if I wasn't going in an upward trajectory, then there was an issue, and I'm never going to get a job, start a new business even though I wanted to in this kind of climate. But it's all a mindset, and being able to change your mindset into seeing these kind of things like redundancy as an opportunity rather than a crisis. So I started to think a bit more about redundancy was actually giving me a lot of choice and a lot of different options and a sense of freedom. Even something so silly as I didn't need to put in for a holiday approval when I booked my my flight back to, which may sound like a silly thing, but for me, I did that constraint of in the corporate role and of working for one person and having to ask approval and all these kind of things. And for me, that set me on a new path to have a think about what I actually wanted, some new goals for the future as well. So it was really a time to reflect for me on what it was that I actually wanted. And when I say a time to reflect, it was definitely got to the point of rumination and overthinking. But what I would encourage anyone, if they were in that situation, to do is really try and take the time to reflect. Journaling helped me about the way I was feeling and what I wanted to do, and really what I wanted to get out of this experience. I took a lot of time to think about what my skills and experiences were, and how these could be transferable to potentially different industries or a whole different career overall. Sometimes we don't see transferables we actually have. So some of the people that were in a similar position to me have a lot of tenure in the hospitality industry, but maybe hadn't realized how many transferable skills they actually did have to move into another job role or into another indeed business. So we're 4 months down the line from when I was made redundant. What I decided to do was actually not go back into a corporate role. Having had a long think about it, I decided that what I wanted was the freedom to make my own choice, to work for different clients. I still really enjoyed being in the HR space, but not just working in environment so much. So what I did was reflect my strengths, and then reflect passion as well. My strength is definitely in HR. So what I've done is set up a HR consultancy business. Did that quickly after I was made redundant as well. So I'm still in the field of HR, but working for myself and feel that for me, over the last few months, that's been very rewarding for me. I'm working alongside, partnering with another company that works with small and medium enterprises to help set up their HR departments, which I found when I was reflecting on my experience from before, I really liked supporting newbies in their setup. I've also got skills outstanding with multinational companies, and also helping on outplacement for individuals. If you haven't heard of the outplacement support, that is where your company can provide career coaching for you and some online materials to help you with CV and getting your LinkedIn profile updated as well. I'm also playing with the career business for their Get Ready, which is their pre-redundancy support. So what that is basically before you know if you're being made redundant, but you have an inkling like I did that it could happen. This is basically a pack that can help you get ready for that change in your life circumstances. That can help your CV with your LinkedIn, and if there's any help you require with that, then you can reach out to me further on that. Also, I have a lot of passion for my property business, and my business partner Jade and I, who's based back in Scotland in the UK, have been building our portfolio for the last 7 or so years, for friends and family. What we decided to do was, because I was made redundant, that I could then split my time into the setup and driving of that property business. So we now help investors generate building their wealth through in the Scottish property market, and that gives me excitement and happiness, and really drives me to wake up in the morning and get on with my day through that as well. That's where I am just now. So that's how I've reinvented myself, and I went on a really different path than I really would have. With setting up the new business, and it's something that other people can do too if they're still in that, if they find themselves in that situation. What I really found helpful was really leveraging my network. Even being in Hong Kong just for a year, I've built a small but very within Hong Kong, and that's through co-works, through networking events, through people on LinkedIn as well. It may not be natural for you to network. I didn't find it to start off. The more you put yourself out there, the more you have patience, the more natural it becomes as well. I felt that for me, personal branding was really important. Who did I want to portray? Who did I want to be? So I developed my CV on the back of that, and also my LinkedIn profile. I actually have 2 LinkedIn profiles, one for my HR and then one for my property, and I'm through my LinkedIn profile as well, through posting. So if it's a role you're looking for as well, like that, putting interesting posts out gains a lot of attention as well, and sometimes that's a real feeling. I remember first on LinkedIn, and I had a little bit of a meltdown doing it and pressing the hit and send post, but now it's second nature to me, even after only a couple of months of doing that. What I find really helpful is what I touched on before about the outplacement services. If the employer was to offer that, I would highly recommend. I really believe in the power of your coaching, and being able to gain that clarity from someone else, gain a different perspective that you might not see when you're in such a life-changing situation. And also, I really reflected, like I'd mentioned, about my passion and strengths. Like, I wanted to start a business, we've never had the courage. Sometimes even our company that we get with redundancy, let us and have a think about what we actually want to do. So it's important to have a little bit of time as well and not feel guilty for doing that, and be able to step back and think, what is it I actually want to do and want to achieve. So I'm coming to the end of my talk today. I wanted to do a brief summary of my 3 key learnings on my journey of redundancy. It really has been a blessing, guys, for me and set me on a new path. Definitely number 1 for me, that limbo stage is the worst stage of redundancy. The not knowing is worse than actually knowing and being able to make a plan. Vulnerability is definitely natural, but it's definitely not true either, especially given this current situation that we find ourselves in right across the globe. And 3, our identity doesn't have to be linked to our role or our career. If we look at what I'm, yes, I've gone into HR, but it's completely different in terms of working with lots of different businesses in the consultancy world. And the flip side of that, I've, with the business, I have a lot of transferable skills there, relationship building, influencing, negotiation. So it's really about reflecting on our skills and experience and what could they be if our industry collapsed as well. What else can we do, or what is our passion that we've been wanting to do for a long time and haven't really been able to. So I just want to end on, if you are in that situation, like, please reach out to me for any advice or support. I'm absolutely open to having those conversations with you. Again, any HR supports, any HR support that you require, I have obviously set up my Ellender HR consultancy business. I'm more than happy to support on any HR needs as well. And then if you aren't in a position of redundancy and you would like to invest in the Scottish property market, I'm happy to. It's my final plug. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Stefanie. That was such an amazing share. I learned so much just about listening to you in terms of changing mindsets and really taking this opportunity in very challenging times to tap into strengths and passion. So now you have, one role, you've got careers working in parallel. I think that's amazing. Now, just before we let you go, we do have 2 questions, so I'll raise them for you. We have a question, which is, any suggestions for job seekers to find a suitable opportunity in this COVID world, those who do not have sufficient resources to start their own ventures?
So I would say definitely leverage your LinkedIn network. Job search. Is that was the question?
Yes,
question,
yes.
right?
Just asking, not entering into a venture alone, what would be your advice in terms of someone just trying to look for?
So initially, what I would do, and what I did as well, was make sure your CV is up to scratch. Get someone to have a look over that, whether that's a recruiter or someone in your family or someone in HR that you know. That's one of the key things because it's your first selling point to an opportunity. Also, what I was talking about in terms of the personal brand, if you can push yourself out on LinkedIn a bit more, I think that's a really powerful tool to use as well. And then have a look at different industries that may be doing a lot better in this current climate than potentially that you may already be in, because there are a lot of different opportunities still out in the market, I would say.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We have just one more question. We have a question that's focusing on someone that has lost their jobs. They're searching they're updating the and they're trying to upload that to any online portals. Despite a good number of years of and experience, he's unable to find a suitable opportunity. What are your suggestions on getting employed again, which is slightly similar to what you've commented earlier?
Yeah, I think for me, I've done this as well when I've been looking for a job. I've updated my CV and fired it out on a lot of different portals or to different recruiters. But sometimes your CV, you're not seen. You get kind of lost in the the pile of CVs that people receive, even outside of this crisis. So what I usually do, if there's a job I want to apply for, then I would tailor my CV to that opportunity and find the hiring manager of that company through the recruiter, who the actual recruiter manager is, and try and get a meeting with them directly, other than putting your CV out and just expecting around that way. And again, sure, your LinkedIn is all up to you. You've got your skills and achievements on there as well. Your profile picture, even make sure, because I see a lot of LinkedIn and people don't even have a picture. It's these small things that can help you as well. Yeah, reaching out to people directly, I feel, really helps. And building relationships with recruiters is very helpful as well. When I was first looking for just an initial opportunity, I was firing my CV here, there, and everywhere, as you do. But what I found was the better option was building relationships with recruiters and showing them why I should be a candidate that they want to push out different as well. I'm not saying it's an easy market, it's definitely not. It's a lot harder than any other market I've been in, but there are little tweaks that you can make that can push you out and stand you out above the rest, I would say.
Okay, time for one last question. We have someone that's asked, did a lack of the local language, Cantonese, concern when you were setting up your firm? And did you do any market studies before you launched your own consultancy?
Well, no, it didn't concern me in terms of lack of Cantonese, because I'd come over here Cantonese and I had the job that I did. And I think in Hong Kong, and I think it's probably laziness on our Westerners' part, that in Hong Kong, people do have a very good level of English, so it wasn't a really too much of a concern for me as well. And potentially I'm kind of placing myself out of the market, more local firms, but I'm finding that the SMEs that I'm working with all have either that's their first language or they're very fluent in English. So it hasn't been a consideration as much for me, which has been good, I suppose.
Well, thank you so much for that. We've learned so much.
Thank you.